Hello, my name is Brian Foster, and I will be teaching you saxophone for the next few weeks. Today we will be looking at a song called Alouette, which is French for Song of the Little Bird. If you look in the video description below, you will find a link to download the sheet music, and then you can either print it out or open it up on your computer, whichever works best for you. Now you can pause and get that set up, and then we'll get started. Alright, let's look at the beginning. So our time signature is 4/4, which means we have 4 beats every measure. Our first note is a dotted half note, which means we hold it for 3 beats, and then our next note is a quarter note, which means it gets 1 beat. Now that dotted half note is a C. To play a C, we take our right hand, we find these white keys called the pearl keys, and we take our middle finger and we put it on this one right here. And that's our C, just that finger. So that quarter note is a D. How we play a D is we put all these fingers down. Notice I'm not touching the little small one. That doesn't really matter right now. Don't worry about that. And then I put all these 3 fingers down. And then I put my thumb down. But I put them all down at the same time. So I go from here to here. Never, ever forget the thumb. It's very important. Now our next measure has 2 half notes, and they're the same note in E. To play an E, take your D, and then you just lift that finger up right there. And that's an E. So D, E, D, E, D, E. Alright, so now you can pause the video and practice that if you'd like, and then we're going to play it together. Alright, so how this works is I'm going to give us a little count in. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and we're going to breathe on that 4th beat, and we're going to come in. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, very good. Let's keep going. So our next measure is all quarter notes, and all notes that we've seen before. So it starts off with a D, which is everything down, and then it goes to a C. So we take everything off except for this little guy right here. And we go back to that D, remember the thumb, and then we play our E, so we lift this finger up. Now our next measure, we go from that E to a C for 2 beats, and then we go down to a G for 2 beats. Now to play a G, take these 2 fingers and put them down. So we're covering all 3 of these pearls right here. So we can pause now, and you can practice that, and then we'll do those 2 measures together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, so I'm gonna hair on my face here. Now let's keep going. These next 2 measures should look a little familiar, and that's because we have seen them before. They are exactly the same as the first 2 measures in the beginning, so I'll go over them quickly and then we'll move on. So 3 beats of C, then a beat of D, thumb, and then lift our finger up for 2 beats of E, and then another 2 beats of E. Alright, so our next measure should also look a little familiar. This is on the 2nd line, by the way, and that's because it is exactly the same as measure 3. So D, C, D, E, and then we hold C for 4 counts. So if you want, you can pause and you can practice anything up to there, and then we're going to play that 4 together. But before we do that, we need to put what's called a breath mark in our music. A breath mark is a little comma that you put in between 2 measures that you want to breathe. Because, of course, we can't hold our breath for 8 measures. That is just too much. So let's find measure 4, and at the end of measure 4, put a little check mark there, and we're going to play it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. now have the first big chunk of the song done. Now let's keep pushing on. Alright, very good. So now we have the first big chunk of our music taken care of. So let's keep going. So now let's look at the third measure of the second line. So it's all quarter notes. So C, we know. D, look at the thumb. E, which we also know, but now we have a new note, F. So to play F, all you have to do is take this finger off. So we have these three, and then this one, and the octave key. Now moving to the next measure, all we have to do is take this finger off. And then we're playing a G. But we still keep our octave key on because this is a high G. This is higher than the one we saw before. So we want to make sure to keep our octave key on so that it's proper pitch. Alright, let's play it together. Ready? Oh, sorry, you can pause and practice it first if you like. Silly me. Alright, now let's go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, let's keep moving. So now we still have our G. Make sure we're using our octave key. Now we have a new note, which is A. Now to play an A, we continue this pattern of lifting all our fingers up. Now we lift this finger up. So we go from G to A, then we go back down to G, and then we go back down to F, and then we go back down to E, and we go back down to D, and we go back down to C, and we hold it for 2 counts. So we go up, C, D, E, F, G, 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 and then we go back down. G, A, G, F, E, D, C. So now I'd like to play from the third measure of the second line all the way to the end of the second line. Let's do it. Alright, ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, very good. Now, let's look at the third line. The third line is fun because these first 4 measures of the third line, it's the same rhythm. Da, da, da. Just 2 quarter notes and a half note. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the note is the same. Well, not the same. We have our high G for the first measure, and then we go to our low G. Then we go back to our high G. We go back to our low G, so thumb off, and then we play our high G again for a whole note, so a whole measure. Now, what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and just experiment with going from your high G to your low G, because it's going to feel a little weird. So just go like this. Just get used to the feeling, and then, once you're done, and you feel comfortable, we're going to play it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So I played the whole note at the end. Sorry if I didn't mention that earlier, but make sure that if you do practice it and if you do go to play it, you always hold the whole note for the whole measure. So now we have the second big chunk of our music taken care of. Now we're almost to the end. Alright, now we've made it through almost the whole song. Now we're just going to get through this last bit and we can play the whole thing together. So let's look with me the last 2 measures of the third line. Does it look a little familiar? I would hope it does, because we've seen it quite a few times. We've seen it in the first 2 measures, and then we've even seen it again in the 5th and 6th measures. In fact, if you look from the last two measures of this third line all the way down to the end, it's identical to the first 8 measures in the beginning. So I'm going to go over it briefly, and then we'll go from there. So, C for 3 beats, D for a beat, E for 2 beats, E for 2 beats again, and then we have D, C, D, E, C for 2 beats, and then G for 2 beats, but this is our low G, so we do not use the octave key. Let's play that much together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. Last 4 measures. C for 3 beats, D for 1 beat, E for 2 beats, E again for 2 beats, and then D, C, D, E, and then C. But we hold our C out for the whole measure because it's a whole note. Whole note equals whole measure, all the way to the end. All right. Let's play that much. 1, 2, ready? All right. Now we've done it. We got through the whole song. So now what we have to do is put in breath marks for the whole thing so that we can breathe in the right places and we don't run out of air and we have a nice full supported sound. So we already have our 1 breath mark marked in at between the 4th and the 5th measure. So now let's put our next one. Let's find measure 7. It's the first measure of line 7. The first measure of line 2. And we'll put a breath mark at the end of that measure. And we're going to count another 4 measures. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll put a breath mark at the end of that one. Then we'll do the same thing again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll put a breath mark there. Now, this part is a little tricky. I'll let you decide where to breathe here. And then once we get to the last 2 measures of the third line, starting from the C, we can breathe right before then, so right before those last 2 measures, and then we count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, take a breath, and then we go through the whole thing. Alright, so you can pause the video, or go back and make sure you got all your breath marks, and then we're going to play the whole thing together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, well, that's the whole song. Doesn't it feel nice to play a whole piece of music? Feels nice to me. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about playing the saxophone and learning about playing Alouetta. And I hope you stay safe and you stay healthy.